The Galactic Council chamber held its breath. 7,000 delegates from 7 species filled the sweeping amphitheater, their bioluminescent robes casting shifting patterns across the crystalline walls. The air vibrated with a tension that had been building for 86 standard cycles. Ambassador Threll of the Cathari Dominion stood at the central podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of unity that fooled no one. The border incursion at Colony 734 was an act of unprovoked aggression, Threll declared, his voice amplified through the chamber's ancient acoustics. The humans have expanded beyond their designated territory. They have ignored every diplomatic overture. They have refused to acknowledge our authority. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Cathari were the oldest spacefaring race in known space. Their dominion had stretched across 12 systems for longer than most species had possessed fire. When Threll spoke, the galaxy listened, but the humans had not listened. Commander Vex stood at the rear of the observation gallery, her compound eyes fixed on the proceedings below. She was not a diplomat, she was a soldier assigned to the Council security detail after the Third Armistice. Her role was to observe, to assess threats, to report anomalies. The humans had been an anomaly from the first contact. They're primitive, Threll continued, his secondary eyelids closing in what passed for contempt among the Cathari. Their technology is crude, their military is laughable. They have no concept of the galactic order we have maintained for millennia. They do not understand their place. Vex shifted her weight. She had read the intelligence reports. She had watched the recordings from Colony 734. The humans had not attacked first. They had responded. Their response had been calculated, precise, and devastating. 6 Cathar warships had been disabled, without a single human vessel suffering damage. That was not primitive. The vote is now before us, Threll announced, to declare war on the human home world of Earth and all human-held territories, to bring them into compliance, to teach them the cost of defiance. The chamber erupted in a cascade of lights and sound, each species expressing approval in their own way. The Asthani clacked their mandibles. The Varag pulsed their throat sacs. The Atruth raised their tentacles in a synchronized wave. Vex watched the numbers appear on the central display. The vote was procedural, theatrical. Everyone knew the outcome before the first ballot was cast. The Council had not declared war in 400 cycles. This was an event for the history files. 93% in favor. Vex felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had been a soldier for 30 cycles. She had participated in 2 minor conflicts and 1 major engagement. She had never seen a unanimous vote for war, not even against the Xylos raiders who had terrorized the Outer Rim for generations. But the humans had done something no enemy had ever achieved. They had made the Council afraid. Let it be known, Threll intoned, his voice taking on the ceremonial weight of ancient tradition, that from this moment the Galactic Council is in a state of war with the species designated humanity. All member worlds are hereby authorized to engage military forces against human targets. All trade agreements are suspended. All diplomatic channels are closed. This war continues until humanity submits to our authority or is rendered incapable of further resistance. The chamber fell silent, the recording. Devices captured every nuance, every shift in ambient light. This moment would be broadcast across the entire known galaxy, 300 worlds, 14 allied species, and one species that had just been marked for extinction. Vex reached for her communication device. She needed to send a message to her command to prepare the defense fleets too. The explosion came without warning. Not from the chamber, not from the station, from everywhere and nowhere at once, a pulse of energy that bypassed shields, armor, and flesh, a sound that existed only in the mind, a harmonic so pure it shattered consciousness itself. Vex was thrown backward, she felt her carapace crack against the observation gallery railing. The world dissolved into static and pain. When her vision cleared, the chamber below was unrecognizable. 7,000 delegates lay where they had stood, not burned, not disintegrated, simply still, their bodies intact but devoid of life. The bioluminescent robes had gone dark, the shifting patterns had frozen into permanent silence. Threll remained standing at the podium, his forearms still raised in that gesture of unity that had fooled no one. His eyes were open, his secondary eyelids had not closed. He was dead, they were all dead. Vex forced herself to her feet. The pain in her carapace was immense, but she had trained for worse. She activated her personal comm unit, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to control it. Central Command, this is Commander Vex. The Council Chamber has been attacked. I repeat, the Council Chamber has been attacked. All delegates are down. I need immediate medical and military assistance. I need the station's communication system crackled. A new channel opened. One Vex did not recognize. It was not Cathar. It was not any known frequency. It was something else entirely. A voice spoke through the interference. Female, calm, almost gentle. Acknowledged. The signal ended. Vex stood in the wreckage of the observation gallery, surrounded by 7,000 corpses, and felt something she had never felt before in 30 cycles of service. Terror. She had watched the Council vote for war. She had watched them seal humanity's fate, and then she had watched something destroy them all. Something that had no signature, no origin, no explanation. Something that had acknowledged her call for help as if it had been waiting to hear it. The station's emergency lights flickered, the backup systems hummed to life, but nothing could restore what had been lost. The Galactic Council was dead. And somewhere out there in the dark, between stars, humanity was watching. Commander Vex had not slept in 52 hours. The debris field that had been the Council Station drifted in a lazy orbit around the gas giant G-Thor. Recovery vessels from 7 species worked in coordinated patterns there, searchlights cutting through the void like surgical instruments. But there was nothing to recover, only bodies still intact, still frozen in positions of final expression. Vex floated through the observation gallery, her environmental suits, thrusters humming softly. The damage was minimal. The explosion, if it could be called that, had not damaged the station structure. No blast marks, no thermal residue, no radiation signatures of any known type. Her tactical officer, Commander Jathar, floated beside her. His 4 eyes had narrowed to slits, sign of deep unease among the Cathari. "This doesn't make sense," Jathar said, his voice distorted through the calm system. There was no weapon signature, no energy buildup, nothing on any sensor. Array, one moment they were alive, the next they were dead, Vex finished. I was here, I saw it. She drifted toward the main chamber, her helmet lights illuminating the rows of seated delegates, 7,000 bodies arranged, as if in a theater production. The H-Ruth ambassador still had his tentacles raised in that synchronized wave of approval. The Estony delegates still had their mandibles clacked in frozen celebration. They had died happy, they had died believing victory was assured. Vex felt a tremor pass through her mandibles. She had served in combat, she had seen soldiers die in agony, in rage, in terror. She had never seen death like this, peaceful, simultaneous, inexplicable. There's something else, Jathar said. The communication records, the broadcast before the blast, the human diplomat's voice. Vex turned to face him. Human diplomat. I've analyzed the signal. It originated from the station's own comm array, but it was routed through a channel that shouldn't exist. The voice was human, no question about that, and the message was clear. Acknowledged, Vex said. I heard it. Yes, Jathar paused, but I've also analyzed the Council's internal communications. The human diplomat, the one who sent that message, didn't exist. There's no record of a human delegate being present. No entry logs, no authorization codes, nothing. Vex's compound eyes widened. Then how did she broadcast from the station's own comm array? She didn't. Jathar's voice dropped to a whisper. She made the station's comm array broadcast for her without physical access, without any access at all. I've checked every system, every security log, every redundant recording. There's no evidence anyone was ever in that room, but the signal came from there. Vex turned back to the frozen chamber. The 7,000 bodies stared back at her with empty eyes. She had believed, every Cathari had believed, that humanity was a primitive species barely capable of leaving their own solar system. Their technology was crude, their military was laughable. They had no concept of the galactic order. But this was not primitive. This was not crude. This was not laughable. This was surgical, precise, terrifying. They knew, Vex said softly, they knew about the vote before it happened. They knew we would declare war, and they were ready. Jathar's 4 eyes blinked in unison. How could they know? The vote was sealed until the moment of broadcast. Even the delegates didn't know the outcome until the ballots were tallied. Vex shook her head. I don't know how. But they did. They knew, and they responded, not with a counter-offer, not with negotiations, with. She gestured at the chamber. The recovery vessels continued their search patterns. The bodies continued their frozen silence, and somewhere out there in the dark between stars, humanity continued to watch. Vex's comm unit crackled. A new message. Priority encrypted, flagged for her eyes. Only, she opened it with a trembling appendage. The message was brief, 3 words. We need to talk. No sender identified, no signature, no location, but Vex knew with a certainty that chilled her blood that this message had come from the same human diplomat who had acknowledged the Council's destruction. She looked at Jathar. I'm taking a shuttle. I need to follow a lead. Jathar's eyes widened. What lead, Vex? The station is in chaos. We need you. Here to coordinate the recovery. You need me here to supervise the removal of 7,000 corpses, Vex said. Flatly, I need to find out why they died. And I need to find out who killed them. She turned away from the frozen chamber. Away from the bodies that had once been the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. She floated toward the shuttle bay, her mind racing with questions she could not answer. The message had been waiting for her. The human diplomat had known she would investigate, had known she would find the truth, had known she would be here at this moment receiving this message. They had planned everything. Vex reached the shuttle bay and boarded. Her personal craft, the navigation systems hummed to life. A set of coordinates appeared on her display. Coordinates she had not entered. She stared at them for a long moment. Then she engaged the thrusters. The shuttle lifted off from the council station and accelerated into the void. Behind her, the wreckage of the Galactic order drifted in silent reproach. Ahead of her, the unknown waited with patient, deliberate purpose. Vex had 30 cycles of combat experience. She had faced down raiders, rebels, and rogue AIs. She had never faced an enemy who could reach through space and time to deliver a single word. Acknowledged. The word echoed in her mind as the shuttle carried her deeper into the darkness. She was about to meet the enemy that had just declared war on the galaxy and had already won the first battle without firing a single shot. The shuttle's navigation systems guided Vex to a derelict station on the edge of the Gethar system, a salvage platform that had been abandoned centuries ago. The wreckage of ancient mining vessels drifted in its orbit, their hulls pitted with micrometeorite impacts and the scars of forgotten conflicts. Vex docked with the station's only functional airlock. The inner hatch cycled open, revealing a corridor that had been hastily cleaned. Fresh plating covered exposed conduits. The lighting was bright, almost clinical, a stark contrast to the decaying exterior. She stepped through the hatch, her sidearm drawn, her senses on high alert. The human was waiting at the end of the corridor. She was shorter than Vex had expected, barely reaching the Cathar shoulder. Her skin was pale, her hair dark, her eyes a shade of blue that seemed almost artificial in the harsh lighting. She wore a simple uniform, unmarked by rank or affiliation. Her posture was relaxed, her expression was calm. She was not afraid. Commander Vex, the human said, her voice carrying the same calm tone that had spoken the word acknowledged over the council's comm system. Thank you for coming. Vex kept her sidearm trained on the human. Identify yourself. My name is not important. What matters is why I asked you here. Then tell me. Vex took a step forward, her compound eyes narrowing. Tell me why you destroyed the council. Tell me how you did it, and tell me what you want to. The human tilted her head slightly. You think I destroyed the council? I saw it happen. I heard you broadcast your message. I watched 7,000 delegates die. You watched them die, the human repeated, but you didn't watch me kill them because I didn't. Vex's mandibles tightened. Then who did? The human took a step closer. Vex tensed, her finger hovering over the trigger, but the human raised her empty hands in a placating gesture. Have you ever wondered, the human said, why every species that has encountered humanity has ultimately withdrawn? Why every negotiation has ended with our opponents leaving the table? Why every conflict has concluded with a quiet agreement that neither side would speak of the engagement again. Vex's compound eyes flickered. She had read the intelligence files. She had seen the patterns. She had asked herself the same questions. The Cathari believe humanity is primitive, the human continued. 2. Primitive to pose a threat. 2. Primitive to understand the galactic order. 2. Primitive to survive a war with the Council. She paused. But the Cathar are wrong. Vex lowered her sidearm slightly. Prove it. The human reached into her pocket and produced a small device, no larger than a data chip. She held it up for Vex to see. This is a recording, the human said, from the Council's own archives. Conversation that took place 63 cycles ago between your species and the Varak. A conversation about humanity. She pressed the device. A holographic projection filled the corridor. 2. Figures in animated discussion. Vex recognized the Cathar ambassador from that era. The Varak representative was a mass of pulsing tissues and bioluminescent tendrils. We cannot reveal the truth, the Varak said. The humans must be allowed to develop on their own. If they discover our observations, they will react unpredictably. The Cathar ambassador responded. Then we will contain them. We will monitor their progress. We will intervene only if they show signs of interstellar ambition. They will show signs, the Varak said. It is only a matter of time, and when they do, we will have to decide whether to include them or destroy them. The recording ended. Vex stared at the human with a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. The Council had known about humanity for decades. They had watched them, monitored them, debated their fate, and they had never shared this information with the broader galactic community. We knew, Vex said softly, we knew about you all along, and we chose to hide it. You chose to hide it because you were afraid, the human said. Afraid of what we might become. Afraid of what we might do. Afraid that your galactic order, your carefully constructed hierarchy, would not survive our arrival. Vex felt her carapace tighten. And now you're proving that fear justified. Am I? The human's eyes held no anger, no accusation, only a terrible patience. Commander, I am here to offer you the truth. The Council was not destroyed by human weapons. It was destroyed by human intervention. Vex's sidearm snapped up again. What's the difference? The human raised her empty hands once more. The difference is that we did not kill them. We stopped them from killing themselves. Explain. 63 cycles ago, the Varak and the Cathari made a decision about humanity. That decision was recorded. That recording was hidden. And that recording was just discovered by a human intelligence network that has been operating inside your Council for longer than you can imagine. Vex's compound eyes widened. Inside the Council, how? The human smiled, a small, controlled expression that contained no malice. We've been inside your governments, your militaries, your intelligence agencies. For centuries, we've watched you make decisions. We've cataloged your mistakes. We've learned your weaknesses. She paused. And when the Council voted to declare war on Earth, we knew exactly what would happen next. Not because we control you, because we understand you. You would have attacked. You would have escalated. You would have committed atrocities that would have made this conflict a catastrophe for both of us. Vex's hand trembled on her sidearm. So, you killed them to prevent a war. I told you, the human said. We didn't kill them, we just acknowledged their decision, and then we made sure the galaxy understood the cost of that decision. The human's eyes met Vex's. Every weapon that was aimed at Earth has been neutralized. Every fleet that prepared to attack has been recalled. Not by our orders, but by their own commanders, who suddenly discovered that their targeting systems were compromised. Every plan for conquest has been disrupted. She stepped closer. The Council is dead, but the galaxy is not at war, and it never will be, because humanity will not allow it. Vex stood in the dim corridor, her sidearm still trained on the human, her mind spinning with impossible revelations. She had come here seeking answers. She had found something far more terrifying than a declaration of war. She had found a species that had been watching for centuries, waiting for this moment, planning for every contingency. And now that the moment had arrived, they were not declaring victory. They were offering mercy. Vex spent the next 12 hours reviewing classified intelligence files on humanity. The archive was buried deep within the Cathari Dominion's central database, collection of records that had been sealed for generations. She had needed special authorization to access it. She had needed to invoke emergency protocols that had not been used in over a century. She had not been prepared for what she found. The first recorded contact with humanity occurred in the cycle 7841 of the Cathari calendar, more than 400 years ago. An exploratory vessel had detected signs of primitive civilization on a blue-green planet in the outer reaches of the galaxy. The planet had been cataloged, its species noted, its potential for development assessed. But the assessment had been wrong. Every species that made contact with humanity withdrew inexplicably. The Varak spent 3 cycles attempting to establish a diplomatic relationship. They withdrew without explanation. Esthani attempted a covert observation mission. They vanished without a trace. The Truth launched a military expedition to test human defenses. They never returned. The Cathari had sent 4 expeditions. All 4 had ended the same way, with a single message transmitted from the human homeworld that simply said, "We know." No demands, no threats, no negotiations. Just recognition. Vex stared at the holographic display, her compound eyes flickering across centuries of data. She had been a soldier for 30 cycles. She had believed, like every Cathari, that humanity was a minor species, barely worth noticing. But humanity had been noticing everyone else for 400 years. The frequency of the patterns, she murmured to herself. Every interaction, every encounter, every attempt at contact, they always knew, they always saw us coming. Jathar's voice crackled through her calm. "Unit Commander, I've been analyzing the data you transmitted. There's something you need to see. Send it through." A new file appeared on her display. Reconstruction of human intelligence. Capabilities based on fragments gathered from multiple sources. The reconstruction was incomplete, but the picture it painted was unmistakable. Humanity possessed a network of observation posts throughout the known galaxy. They had agents embedded in every major government. They had access to communication channels that were supposed to be unbreakable. They had been watching for so long that they had become invisible. These numbers can't be right, Jathar said. The estimated size of their intelligence network, it's larger than our entire military, larger than our entire civilian infrastructure. If these figures are accurate, humanity has been operating at a level of efficiency that should be impossible. It's not impossible, Vex said, it's just incomprehensible. We never looked for them because we never believed they could exist. We assumed we were the apex of intelligence. We assumed we were the most advanced species in the galaxy. She paused. We assumed we were alone at the top. And while we were making that assumption, humanity was climbing the ladder below us. Jathar was silent for a long moment. Commander, if this is true, if humanity has been watching us for centuries, if they have been inside our governments, if they have been planning for this moment, then what do we do? Vex turned away from the display. We do what they want. You can't be serious. Jathar, look at the data. Vex gestured at the holographic display. Every species that has encountered humanity has withdrawn. Every negotiation has ended with our opponents leaving the table. Every conflict has concluded with a quiet agreement that neither side would speak of the engagement again. She paused. These aren't random events. These are patterns. Humanity has been conditioning us for centuries, teaching us to fear them, to avoid them, to pretend they don't exist, and we've been learning. We just didn't realize it. Jethar's voice was barely a whisper. What do you want me to do? Send a message to the human diplomat. Tell her I want to meet again. Tell her I have questions that need answers. Questions about what? Vex looked at the frozen image of Earth on her display, the blue-green planet that had been watching them all along. Questions about why they waited, she said, if they could have destroyed the Council at any time, if they could have taken control of the galaxy centuries ago, if they had all the power to reshape the galactic order and they chose not to use it, I want to know why. She reached out and touched the image of Earth. Because I don't think they were waiting for war. I think they were waiting for something else. The display flickered. A new message appeared from the human diplomats. Unknown frequency. Thank you for the invitation, Commander. I will meet you on the salvage platform. We have more to discuss. Vex stared at the message. The human had responded instantly. They had known she would send the message before she had even thought of sending it. They were always watching. And now, for the first time, they were ready to talk. The second explosion came 3 hours later. Vex was en route to the salvage platform. When the news arrived, the military command hub of the Unity Fleet, the Central Coordination Center for all Allied military operations, had been destroyed. 3 admirals, their entire staff, hundreds of support personnel, all dead. The energy signature was identical to the Council chamber attack. No blast marks, no thermal residue, no radiation signatures of any known type, just bodies frozen in position, their faces showing no sign of distress. And again, a single word had preceded the destruction. Acknowledged. Vex stared at the holographic display in her shuttle, her compound eyes wide with horror. The Unity Fleet was the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. Its command hub was protected by layers of shielding defensive systems and redundant security protocols. It had been breached as if it were made of paper. Commander Jathar's voice crackled. Through the comm, we're receiving reports from every allied world. There's been a cascading series of attacks, all targeted at command and control infrastructure, all identical in method, all with the same message. The death toll, Vex asked. Unconfirmed, but estimates are. Jathar paused. Commander, they've hit every fleet headquarters, every communication relay, every strategic command node. They've systematically disabled our ability to coordinate a response. Vex leaned back in her seat, her mind racing. The attacks were surgical, precise, devastating. They had not killed indiscriminately. They had targeted specific structures, specific personnel, specific capabilities. They had rendered the Allied military forces leaderless and blind. Why, she whispered, why now? She had been on her way to meet the human diplomat. She had been ready to listen, to understand, to find a path forward, and then the second wave had struck. Had the human been stalling? Had she been distracting Vex while the attacks were being prepared? Or had the attacks been the reason for the meeting, a demonstration that humanity was not finished? Vex changed course. The salvage platform was no longer her destination. She needed to see the destruction for herself. She needed to understand what she was dealing with. The shuttle's navigation systems protested. The coordinates she had entered were outside their pre-programmed range, but Vex overrode the warnings and pushed the thrusters to maximum output. She reached the Unity Fleet Command Hub in under an hour. The station was a ruin, its outer hull intact, its internal systems dark, its corridors filled with the frozen bodies of military officers who had never seen death coming. Vex floated through the command center. The admiral's chair was still occupied. The three admirals were still seated at their stations, their hands frozen over the controls, their faces showing the same expression of calm acceptance that had haunted the council chamber. They had not fought, they had not resisted, they had simply died. Vex's comm unit crackled. The human diplomat's voice filled the shuttle's speakers. Commander, I know you're at the command hub. I know you're trying to understand what's happening. Vex's mandibles tightened. You said you wanted to talk. You said you had answers, but while I was coming to meet you, you were killing our leadership. We were removing obstacles, the diplomat said, the same obstacles we removed at the council, obstacles that would have escalated this conflict into something neither of us could survive. Vex's compound eyes flashed with anger. You expect me to believe that killing 3 admirals was an act of mercy? You expect me to believe that 3 admirals would have shown mercy to Earth? The diplomat countered. Commander, we've been watching your admirals for years. We know their battle plans, we know their strategies, we know what they were prepared to do to our home world. The diplomat's voice softened. We know about the asteroid bombardment plan, we know about the atmospheric ignition protocol, we know about the biological warfare contingencies. Your admirals weren't planning to conquer Earth, they were planning to erase it from existence. Vex's anger faltered. She had heard rumors of the contingency plans, but she had never believed them. The Cathari had always presented themselves as a civilized species, committed to the rule of law and the preservation of life. But the human was telling the truth. Vex could see it in the data stream that appeared on her display, the classified documents, the operational orders, the detailed plans for planetary annihilation. They would have done it, the diplomat said. They were going to do it. The vote for war was just the first step. The second step was the complete destruction of Earth and every human colony in the galaxy. Vex's mandibles trembled. How do you know this? Because we've been inside your systems. For decades, we know what your admirals were planning before they planned it. We knew about the asteroid plan before it was even approved by the Council. The diplomat paused. Commander, we didn't start this war. We tried to prevent it. We tried to warn you. We sent diplomatic messages. We offered negotiations. We gave you every opportunity to back away from the brink, but you refused. Vex looked at the frozen body of the admiral. The figure was still seated in the command chair, still frozen in that expression of calm acceptance. He had died without firing a single shot, without issuing a single order. He had died because humanity had reached through space and time to make him stop. We're not done, the diplomat said. The attacks will continue until every threat to Earth is neutralized, until every fleet is disabled, until every plan for destruction is erased from existence. Vex's voice was barely audible. And then what, when you've destroyed everything we've built, what will you do? The diplomat was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight of something that might have been sadness. Then we'll try to build something better. The salvage platform had changed. When Vex arrived for the second meeting, the derelict station had been transformed. Fresh plating covered the exposed conduits, clean lighting illuminated the corridors. The air smelled of antiseptic and something else, something unfamiliar that might have been ozone or might have been anticipation. The human diplomat was waiting in a newly furnished chamber. She sat at a simple table, 2 chairs arranged opposite each other. A pot of steaming liquid sat between them, the first act of hospitality Vex had ever received from a human. Commander, the diplomat said, gesturing to the empty chair, please sit. Vex remained standing. I've seen what you've done, the Council, the admirals, the cascading attacks across every allied world. I've seen the bodies. I've seen the destruction. Yes, the diplomat said, you've seen what we've done, but you haven't seen why. Then tell me. Vex's voice was flat, controlled. Tell me why you destroyed the Galactic Order. Tell me why you killed everyone who could have stopped you. Tell me why you're continuing this campaign of systematic annihilation. The diplomat took a sip from her cup. The gesture was calm, almost casual. Commander, I'm going to tell you something that will be difficult to believe. I'm going to tell you the truth about humanity, about what we are about, what we've been doing for the past 400 years. She set the cup down. Humanity is not primitive. We've never been primitive. We've been waiting. Vex's compound eyes narrowed. Waiting. For what? For you to make the same mistake that every other species has made. For you to decide that we were weak. For you to declare war. The diplomat leaned forward. Commander, we've been monitoring the galaxy for centuries. We've watched your species evolve. We've watched your council form. We've watched you conquer and enslave and destroy entire civilizations. Vex opened her mouth to protest, but the diplomat raised her hand. Don't deny it, we have records, we've cataloged every war, every atrocity, every injustice committed in your name. We've been preparing for this moment since before your species achieved faster than light travel. Vex felt her carapace tighten, preparing. How? By building a network, an intelligence network that spans the entire known galaxy, by embedding agents in every government, every military, every intelligence agency, by learning your languages, your cultures, your weaknesses. The diplomat paused. We've been inside your systems for so long that we've become invisible. You look at us and see a primitive species, weak, ignorant, incapable of comprehending your advanced civilization. You don't see the truth. She stood up from the table, her eyes met Vex's. We are the species you should have been afraid of. We are the species that could have destroyed you at any point in the last 400 years. We are the species that chose not to. Vex's mandibles trembled. Why, if you had all this power, why didn't you use it? Because power is not the point. The diplomat's voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it, something Vex recognized as barely suppressed anger. We could have conquered the galaxy centuries ago. We could have destroyed every species that threatened us. We could have made ourselves the undisputed rulers of known space. She stepped closer. But conquest was never our goal. Domination was never our goal. Our goal was to wait, to watch, to determine whether the galactic order was worth preserving. And what did you decide? The diplomat's eyes held Vex's gaze. We decided that the galaxy had to change, that the council was corrupt, that the admiralty was power-hungry, that the system you had built was designed to benefit the powerful and crush the weak. She paused. We tried to give you time to change. We sent diplomatic messages. We offered negotiations. We gave you every opportunity to reform your institutions and treat other species with respect, but you refused. Vex felt a cold dread settling in her stomach. So you destroyed us. Not destroyed, the diplomat shook her head, corrected. We removed the leaders who were dragging the galaxy toward catastrophe. We disrupted the systems that were enabling oppression. We created the space for something new to emerge. Vex's voice was barely a whisper. And what will emerge? The diplomat's expression softened. Commander, we've been waiting for 400 years. We've learned patience. We've learned restraint. We've learned to see the bigger picture. She stepped back toward the table. The galaxy will be reorganized. Not under human domination, under human stewardship. We will protect the weak. We will ensure justice. We will create a system that works for everyone, not just the powerful. She extended her hand. That's what we've been waiting for. That's what we've been building toward. And now that the old order is gone, we can finally build it. Vex looked at the human's extended hand. She looked at the chamber around her. The clean walls, the simple furnishings, the evidence of a species that had been hiding in plain sight for centuries. She had believed, like every Cathari, that humanity was a primitive species. She had believed that the galactic order was the pinnacle of civilization. She had been wrong, and now she had a choice. Vex did not take the human's hand. She stepped back, her compound eyes flickering with uncertainty, the weight of the past 12 hours pressed against Her, the Council's destruction, the Admiral's death, the cascading attacks. Across Allied space, the human had offered a vision of a new order, but Vex had not yet decided whether to accept it. You still haven't told me, Vex said, her voice flat. You've explained your actions, you've justified your methods, but you haven't explained the most important question. The diplomat tilted her head. And what question is that? How did you do it? Vex stepped forward, her mandibles tight with tension. How did you destroy the Council without leaving a trace? How did you reach into our command hub and kill 3 admirals without firing a single weapon? How did you coordinate cascading attacks across 1,000 light years without any of our defenses detecting your presence? The diplomat's eyes held Vex's gaze for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful, measured. Commander, humanity's greatest achievement is not our technology, it's our perception. Vex's compound eyes narrowed. Perception. We can see things that other species cannot, not just in the visible spectrum, across space, across time, across the boundaries of reality itself. We can perceive the connections between events that appear separate. We can see the patterns that emerge from chaos. The diplomat raised her hand, and a holographic projection appeared in the air between them. It showed a galaxy, a vast spiral of stars and planets, each one connected by threads of light that pulsed and shimmered. This is what we see, the human said. Every civilization, every government, every military force, they're all connected. Each action creates a ripple that spreads across the entire galaxy. Each decision has consequences that echo through time. Vex stared at the projection. The threads of light were beautiful, intricate, almost alive. They pulsed with colors that she had never seen before, representing forces that she could not comprehend. You're saying you can see the future? Vex asked. Not exactly, the diplomat shook her head. We can see potential futures. We can see the consequences of actions. We can see where the ripples will lead. She gestured at the projection. When the Council voted for war, we saw the future. We saw the asteroid bombardment, the atmospheric ignition, the biological warfare. We saw the destruction of Earth and the enslavement of our colonies, and we saw the aftermath. The projection shifted, the galaxy darkened, the threads of light fading into black. Planets died, species vanished, the light of civilization was extinguished. This is what would have happened, the diplomat said, not just to Earth, to everyone. The war would have escalated until nothing remained. The Council's victory would have been a Pyrrhic one, followed by civil war and the collapse of galactic society. Vex felt her carapace tighten. And you prevented it. We prevented it by removing the key decision makers, the ones who would have pushed the conflict into genocide, the ones who would have destroyed everything. The diplomat's voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. We didn't kill them out of malice. We killed them to save lives. Vex's voice was barely a whisper. How many lives? Billions, the diplomat's eyes held. Vex's trillions, everyone in the galaxy. We killed 7,000 to save everyone else. Vex stood in the chamber staring at the projection. The galaxy spun slowly, its threads of light pulsing with potential futures. She had spent her entire career believing that war was the solution, that strength could solve any problem, that force was the ultimate answer. But humanity had found a different answer. They had looked at the war and seen the destruction it would bring, and they had stopped it not with weapons, not with armies, but with precision, with perception, with the ability to see what others could not. You have the power to reshape the entire galaxy, Vex said. You have the perception to see every possible future. Why didn't you just take control? Why didn't you conquer us centuries ago? The diplomat's expression softened. Because conquest is not the answer. Domination is not the answer. We've been watching the galaxy for centuries. Commander, we've seen every form of government, every system of control. We've seen the powerful exploit the weak, we've seen the strong destroy the helpless, and we decided that we wouldn't become that. She stepped closer to Vex. Humanity has the power to destroy you. All, we've had that power for a very long time, but power without wisdom is meaningless. Power without restraint is tyranny, and tyranny is not what we want to create. Vex looked at the projection. The threads of light continued to pulse, showing potential futures that she could barely comprehend. The galaxy was a vast place full of wonders and horrors, and she had only seen a tiny fraction of it. Then what do you want to create? Vex asked. The diplomat smiled, a small, gentle expression that contained no malice. We want to create a galaxy where everyone has a voice, where the powerful protect the weak, where justice is not just a concept but a reality. We want to build something better than what came before. She extended her hand again. Will you help us? Vex looked at the hand. She looked at the diplomat's eyes. She looked at the projection that showed the potential futures, the destruction that had been averted, the new order that could be built. She had spent her life following orders, fighting wars, protecting the Cathari dominion. She had never questioned the system. She had never imagined that something better could exist. But now she could see it, a future where everyone had a voice, where the powerful protected the weak, where justice was real. She reached out and took the human's hand. Yes, she said, I'll help you. The first human ambassador assumed her seat in the newly formed Galactic Council chambers 3 months after the declaration of war. The chambers had been rebuilt on the ruins of the old council station. Deliberate choice that reminded everyone of what had been lost and what could be rebuilt. Vex stood at the rear of the observation gallery, her compound eyes fixed on the proceedings below. She had become a representative of the Cathari Dominion, not a military commander, not a security officer, but a voice for her species in the new galactic order. The chamber was crowded with delegates from every known species. The Asthani clacked their mandibles, the Verak pulsed their throat sacs, the Atruth raised their tentacles in a synchronized wave, but this time the gestures were not expressions of approval for a war. They were expressions of hope for a new beginning. The human ambassador rose from her seat. Her uniform was simple, unmarked by rank or affiliation. She was shorter than most of the delegates around her, but her presence filled the chamber. I stand before you today not as a conqueror, she said, her voice amplified through the chamber's acoustics, not as a victor, not as a representative of a species that has proven its power. I stand before you as a partner, as a steward, as someone who believes that we can build something better than what came before. The chamber fell silent. 7,000 Delegates, the same number that had perished in the destruction, listened with rapt attention. Humanity has been watching the galaxy for centuries, the ambassador continued. We've seen every species rise and fall. We've seen every war, every alliance, every betrayal. We've seen the best and worst of what you have to offer. She paused. And we believe in you. We believe in your potential. We believe that you can be more than the machines of conquest that your leaders tried to make you. We believe that you can choose a different path. The Asthani clacked their mandibles in approval. The Varak pulsed their throat. Sax, the Atruth, raised their tentacles in a synchronized wave. We will not rule you, the ambassador said. We will not dominate you. We will not impose our will on you, but we will protect you from yourselves, from each other, from the darkness that threatens to consume us all. She extended her hand. Will you join us? One by one, the delegates rose from their seats. The Asthani raised their mandibles. The Varak pulsed their throat. Zax, the Atruth, raised their tentacles. The Cathari, led by Vex, rose to their feet. The chamber erupted in applause. It was not the theatrical celebration of a war declaration. It was a moment of genuine emotion, a recognition that something profound had changed. Vex watched the human ambassador accept the applause. The woman's eyes were calm, steady, the eyes of someone who had seen the future and knew it would be brighter. The ambassador's voice carried across the chamber one final time. We have been given a second chance. Let us not waste it. Vex found the ambassador in the corridor. After the proceedings, the woman was speaking with delegates from every species, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, building bridges. Ambassador, Vex said. The human turned. Commander, please call me Vex. We're partners now. Vex nodded. Partners, I like that. They walked together through the corridors of the rebuilt station. The walls were clean. The lighting was bright. The air smelled of antiseptic. And something else, something unfamiliar. That might have been ozone or might have been hope. I wanted to thank you, Vex said, for giving us a chance, for not destroying us when you could have. The ambassador shook her head. We never wanted to destroy anyone. We only wanted to stop the destruction that was coming. Vex looked at the woman beside her. She was smaller than most of the delegates, but her presence was undeniable. She carried herself with a confidence that came from knowing the truth, from seeing the threads of light that connected everything. How do you do it? Vex asked. How do you carry that weight, seeing everything, knowing everything, watching the future unfold? The ambassador's expression softened. It's not easy, but we've been doing it. For centuries, we've learned to live with the burden. She paused. We've learned to find hope in the darkness, to see the light in the chaos, to believe that we can build something better. Vex nodded slowly. She had seen the projection, the galaxy spinning with its threads of light, the potential futures that humanity had perceived. She had seen the destruction that had been averted and the new order that could be built. She had chosen to believe. Then let's build something better, Vex said. Together. The ambassador smiled, a genuine expression, not a diplomatic one. Together, she agreed. They continued walking through the corridor, two partners in a new galactic order. Behind them, the chambers of the rebuilt Council hummed with the energy of 7,000. Delegates, the voices of the galaxy. Finally united in purpose. The war was over, the old order was gone, and a new future was beginning. One built on hope, on trust, and on the belief that even the darkest moments could give birth to something brighter. Vex looked up at the stars visible through the station's observation window. The galaxy stretched before her. Vast and full of potential, she had been a soldier for 30 cycles. She had fought in wars that had no meaning, had served leaders who cared only for power. But now she was something else, a partner, a builder, a believer. The human ambassador walked beside her. Calm and steady, together they would face whatever came next. And whatever came next, they would face it together. The end.